Hi everyone, welcome back to Job One for All. In this video, we are finally done with files, new IO package, streams, output strings, input strings, and everything related to files. We are going to start talking about, I think, one of the most exciting topics, that is collections. Collections is one of the most important topics in my opinion, because when you are developing your own software, most of the time the data you will be working with will never be a single piece of data, will never be only one student, will never be only one, for example, user. You have several types of systems that require you to handle like thousands of data. And most of the time, this is what you are going to do. If you query something from a database, probably you are going to get back a collection. And from that collection, sometimes you want to filter, sometimes you want only unique values. And most of the time, believe me, it will be handling all of this through the Java framework collection. So let's get started. Let's not collect. So excited that I'm getting some misspelling words. Let's create a new package. Y collection dot test. So the first thing that we have to understand when we are working with collections is the equals. And why is it so important? First, let's create here equals test01. And probably did that more than 100 times now. Public static void main. And let's start with one simple example. Let's say that we have two names. We have name and we have name2. So if you are watching from the very beginning, you know that this will return. And if you don't know what this is going to return, go back to the string videos to understand what's happening here. So basically, what we are doing here is comparing two reference variables. So since both of them, they are in the pool of strings, we get the same value back because, strings are immutable. Now, the things starts to get interesting when we do something like this. Now, when we execute again, we have false. For you as a developer, as human, and seeing those values, they should be the same, because it doesn't matter where you are, for example, name or name2, the value, the string value is what matters for you. But remember, when you use equals, the behavior that was designed by default is that they are going to compare the reference values. So the name is having a reference to -1 at the pool of strings, and name2 is having a reference to a string object in the heap. So the places where they are is completely different, but the meaning of these two objects, these two reference variables, they are exactly the same. That's my name. Now, when we have this situation, I told you, you never compare two objects only with equal sign. You should call the equals method. So the equals is a method that will return what you are expecting, the value of that object. In this case, the equals that we have here was defined in the string class. Equals is a method that was defined in the object class. So it means that every single class you create, you will have access to the equals. So in the case of the string class, the equals will compare the string that we have, the string, the first value, because you always call the equals from a reference variable. It means from a object to the object being passed here. So in this case, specifically case for strings, they are comparing the text value. But if you go one step above, for example, this is the object class. This is the equals that is inherited by every single class in Java. So if you do not change, this is what your class will have because of the overriding rules that we have in Java. So we're going to talk about this later, but basically this is what you get. And the equals is important because, for example, imagine that you have an array of 1,000 employees and you want to get the employee called William. How do you filter? And how do you get that object back? You will only be able to do it if you tell Java how to find two objects that are equally the same. For example, now that we know how this works, let's go back and create here in our package another package called domain, remove test, Java class. Let's create a class called smartphone. So when you buy any electronics, there is one thing that all of them will have: serial number. So I'm creating serial number as a string because sometimes it can have letters. And let's give a name. Let's override the constructor and get as setters. Okay, so we have smartphone. Now let's go back to our equals test and let's create two objects: smartphone s1, new smartphone, and let's give some random value and name. Let's say that this is an iPhone and yeah, pixel. Cool. Now we have two objects. So if you, as developer, as human, you look at this and ask someone, they don't even need to be developers, if this is the same thing, they will probably say yes, they are the same thing, because you as human understands that, for example, serial number is what identifies a unique piece of electronic. Now if we tell Java, hey, is s1 equals to s2, of course this is going to return false. And why is that? Because of the behavior that was defined in the object class. So basically it's just comparing the references. Now if we need to draw, let's say we have one object here, let's copy the name, the serial number here, let's add it here, and we have exactly two objects. But then we have here s1 that's having a reference to this, and we have here s2 that's having a reference to this other guy. Now the thing is, when you ask is, and imagine that, for example, here you have this reference and here you have this reference, so you're basically asking, is this reference equals this reference? Of course not, they are completely different. Both objects, they are in different spaces in memory, and this is what the equals that was defined in the object class is doing, basically comparing the references of those objects where they are located. And if you want them to be the same, s2 should be something like this, because now s2 will have exactly the same value that we have in s1. And how do we achieve that? Basically saying, hey, s2, you have now a reference to exactly the same object that s1 is having, and of course this is going to return true. So basically we have to tell Java, hey Java, every time I want to compare smartphones, this is how we should do it, and we are going to do it in the next video. So see you there.